I just got done listening to a podcast just a show with Pearl Davis and Andrew Wilson, two other content creators. Andrew does more political content, Orthodox Christian apologist type stuff. And Pearl Davis focuses more on like relationships and divorce and those kinds of things. And Pearl kept pressuring Andrew on the question of, what do men get out of marriage? And Andrew's answer was, we get, what we're looking for, I guess, is someone to be a homemaker, someone to raise the kids. And it's not really the case anymore. And that was Pearl's point, was that that's not what's happening anymore in these relationships, and Andrew divided it up between what's a secular marriage and a Christian marriage. Now, when I met my wife, what I was looking for in a relationship was very different at 19 years old than what ended up turning, how we ended up, later on in life. Selfishly, my wants out of a relationship then were focused more around bedroom issues than anything. And fortunately for me, my wife's, what she was looking for, and I don't know how she saw this in me, especially at the time, because I was just partying and drinking and getting in fist fights, and I was all about myself. I made $1 to buy myself a new dirt bike or to go out and party that weekend. I had no focus on wanting a marriage, had no focus on wanting a family. That was never my focus. However, my wife has always wanted to be a mother and always wanted to raise kids. And honestly, red flags were there on both sides. Everything she wanted is none of the things that I wanted, and everything I wanted, and vice versa. You know what I'm trying to say here. So, like, what I was looking for in a marriage or out of a relationship, I never wanted a marriage. I never wanted kids. Sorry, I don't know why my throat's all stuffy right now. I never wanted kids. I never wanted those things. I just wanted to continue partying and living that playboy lifestyle my whole life. However, around 20 years old, about a year and a half into our relationship, she wound up getting pregnant, a baby trap, basically, I guess you could say. And I was pretty resentful and pretty bitter toward the situation at the time. Obviously, if I make an agreement, as much as I don't like it, like even when it comes to work, if I hate my job, if I say I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock every day, I'm there 15 minutes early every day, and I'm going to do the best I can, even though I hate every second of it. So I wasn't going to just leave her with a kid. So I stuck around. Well, here we are 20 some odd years later. We have 3 kids together, a nice, relatively middle-class lifestyle. So what I'm basically getting at is, what initially attracted me to my wife and why I stuck around, I don't know. Like I said, the red flags were there on both sides. At any point, this could have went either direction. I didn't want a marriage. She wanted a marriage and kids. I just wanted to play it. And somehow she whittled me down and beat me down into now, a family man. 3 kids, house, all these responsibilities and all these things I never knew I wanted, I guess you could say. So the conversation between Pearl and Andrew, I was on both sides of the coin, I guess you could say. Pearl's view is men just want to get laid. Andrew's view is that's a secular, relationship, but, if we raise kids, men, young boys to become, Christian and have the values of wanting a family and having a marriage and those things, then that's what they're going to value. I'm very fortunate that my wife met both of those needs, I guess you could say, in that in the end, we both ended up getting what we wanted. And I can't tell you how many times it could have went a different direction and, we could have split up. I mean, countless times we've been on the verge of splitting up and just haven't, for whatever reason, whether it was for the kids, whether it was for, I don't know. Like I said, my wife had all the red flags. She should have left me 1,000 times, whether it was through my drinking, whether it was through my drug addiction, and not wanting to have like that family lifestyle early on. I didn't have the motivation to like buckle down and focus on, having a steady job and focusing on, providing for the family. I was really into my career at the time, building off-road race cars. I would bounce from shop to shop. And then eventually I went into business for myself. And, my drug addiction is really what brought that down. But that's another selfish act. I was using drugs to kind of numb myself from the responsibilities I never wanted, the marriage, the kids, all that were all things that I never wanted. And, I was numbing myself with drugs and alcohol and partying and stuff. And, we just had our third son a year ago. I was 41. She's 39. And, my views on this whole thing have completely changed. And a lot of it comes from the content that I've been listening to, mostly Andrew's content. Like I said, Pearl focuses on, she's pretty black-pilled and kind of focuses on how bad things are. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. Actually, right now, the reason why I started doing this YouTube channel and making this content was I was in a really low place, 6 months ago, at the beginning of the year, just in limbo with what I was going to do for work. Financially, we were drowning. We had another kid, so my wife's hormones were all over the place. Things were bad. And every one of my friends I talked to, things were bad. And one of those friends is going through a really nasty divorce. And we were talking a little bit this morning, and he was like, she's more focused on money than she was on being a mom. And I'll tell you right now that if I was half as successful as this man was, my wife would be thrilled. He has a very successful business. He's very, very level-headed. He's just as childish as any of us men that have a little bit of financial freedom when it comes to buying toys and goofing around. But he's a good dude and financially more well off than I've been in the 40 years I've ever been alive. And she still wasn't happy. And that's a lot of Pearl's content. So both of what Pearl and Andrew talk about really hit home for me. And, a lot of what I wanted my content to be about was around helping people with drug addiction and going through that kind of stuff. But it seems like it needs to be more focused on, I was that degenerate. I was that guy. I was focused on me, and not focused on having a family and doing, my duties as a man, as a husband. And had I leaned into that earlier in our relationship between my wife and I, we would be a lot better, let me tell you. Because that's all she wanted, was a family and a loving home and kids and the white picket fence and a red front door. I don't understand the red front door, but yeah. So I think more of what I'm going to start focusing on more now is more of that style of content, of trying to get these next generation of men to avoid the pitfalls I made when it came to what I found valuable in life, what I found valuable in a relationship, what I found, what I guess led to my drug addiction was trying to hide from those things. And we need to right this ship before it's too late. You know, Pearl's pretty doom-pilled on things are effed and they're never coming back. And Andrew's pretty optimistic that we can right this ship and fix it. I'm pretty black-pilled on a lot of things, but you know, I got a 20-year-old son at this point, and he's already moved out of the house at like 18. You know, he got all mad at me because I wouldn't let his girlfriend live here, and they found a place, and now they're doing good. They just got a little apartment down in the city. We actually spent Mother's Day there yesterday down at their pool, and he's doing good. He's talking about proposing to her, and my only concern is she's a content creator, and she does not she doesn't make bad content. She makes good, like, wholesome, like, she's kind of talking to the camera, getting ready in the morning, and sells beauty products or something silly. But she's making good money at it. I just hope that their next focus after getting married and stuff like that would be to start a family and start having kids. So we'll see. I can only hope. And I think my focus from here on out is going to be more toward that kind of content. Until next time.